Alright guys, welcome back to F1 News, and qualifying at the Australian Grand Prix has concluded. Leclerc's on pole, but certainly not the only story of the day. Could Alonso have had pole, a DRS zone getting completely removed, and McLaren in a bit of a fight back? Very much intrigued to your thoughts down below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Sebastian Vettel, he can't see out of the news right live and soul of the party. But yeah, tough day for Aston Martin today on many different fronts that we shall dive into. First of all, one of the DRS zones, a big discussion point the last few days. Why is there 4 DRS zones on the track? The one down the back straight, well, not even a straight, right? It's a massive curve on the back straight. There was a DRS zone there. They've now removed that one between turn 8 and turn 9 as it now is. And only the only DRS zones now are on the first straight, after the first chicane, and then on kind of the final section of the back straight a little bit shorter. This is quite a big deal. I believe it's due to some safety concerns. Now, seemingly, Alonso, quite interestingly enough actually, was one of the drivers and kind of one of the teams in Alpine calling for this at the drivers' meeting. There's maybe the speeds are just too fast in there, right? Given you are going around a corner, like at the lack of downforce, if you get the DRS open, have less downforce on the rear wing, therefore it could be dangerous through that section. Now, arguably it's no less or no more dangerous than in Jeddah, right? They're kind of curved straight over there. So there's a question about this, but it seems like the F1 guys decided, or the FIA, right before the start of free practice 3 to just get rid of that DRS zone. So quite a big difference actually in terms of these teams setting up, right? Kind of a difficult time if you've been setting up for that DRS zone to be there, and now all of a sudden the main straight on the back side is now no DRS anymore. That's a pretty big deal for qualifying. So definitely threw some teams off, I think, and also will change how things play out in the race in theory. Right? It should be more difficult to pass. Does it help Ferrari? Does it help Red Bull? Because at the end of the day, and also Mercedes might struggle a little bit just because they've been hoping anything that can get rid of the porpoising should be good for them. And of course, Ferrari in a similar boat right now, porpoising an awful lot on these straights. So maybe they would have quite liked that DRS zone, because when you have the DRS open, reduces the downforce, therefore reduces the porpoising effect. Then again, though, it's the Red Bulls that have really benefited with those DRS straights over the last couple of races. So maybe it hurts them. It's really tough to say who comes out on top. But certainly one car that did seem to be coming out on top was none other than Fernando Alonso's Alpine. Straight into free practice 3, he goes top of the timesheets. That really would continue for the rest of the day. This, though, unfortunately, the Aston Martin, first of all, it looks an atrocious car to drive. But the way this gravel trap is, if you get caught in this gravel trap, your car's just going to die. And this happened to Vettel, right? He goes off, spins off, hits the wall, and completely ruins his car, to be honest. They just managed to get him out for qualifying, but it was far from easy. And Max Verstappen, he was also losing it as well a little bit from time to time, because complaining about the balance of the car. He's kind of had a frustrating weekend so far, and some other things about Max Verstappen we'll dive into here in a second, but just so many storylines on the day. And again, another red flag, because Stroll goes into the wall this time in, I believe, the same gravel trap. So yeah, it doesn't look like a great car this year. Thankfully, both drivers are okay, but only Vettel managed to make it out on the track. And actually, no, Stroll and Vettel both managed to make it out on the track again, but Stroll was involved in another incident that we shall see here in just a second. Now, anyway, as free practice finishes up, Norris takes P1. Would you believe it? Given, what the McLaren looked like back in Bahrain, completely atrocious, complete backmarker car, right? They were fighting to get into P18 effectively. A few weekends later, very much a different story. Norris was flying on the day. The McLaren actually looked good. Definitely raises more hope, I guess, that the Mercedes cars, maybe the engine isn't the issue there, just because I'm pretty sure in the top 10 in qualifying, there was 4 Mercedes power units, which, I guess there was, right? The Mercedes and the McLarens. We'll see that in a second. End of FP3 looks like this. Norris, Leclerc, Perez, Alonso P4. So, certainly we'll see how that transpired in the race itself. Of course, most poles in Australia go to Lewis Hamilton. He had each of the last 6 poles, but again, did not happen this time around as we dive into practice. First of all, though, honestly, what a ridiculous incident this is. I can't believe it's these two at it again. Stroll and Latifi, unbelievable scenes. I feel bad for Latifi in a way, because he's ended up in the wall again. I'm pretty sure he's crashed now at 5 consecutive races. This guy might have been the most impactful, driver of the last, 6 races or so, 5-6 races. Unbelievable scenes. But, here he goes. He's in the wall again. In fairness, it was a bit of a weird situation, because Stroll went past Latifi, and then Stroll slowed down. I guess Latifi thought Stroll was on a hot lap, and then he wasn't. So Latifi said, okay, I'll just nab up the inside. And then Stroll just decided, no, I'm making the apex no matter what. I guess just didn't check his right mirror, which, surely if you're pulling to the right, you should probably look in your right mirror. Didn't do it. Latifi comes flying up the inside. Stroll completely turns in and cuts him off, just destroys the rear end of his car. He goes flying into the wall, and also damages Stroll's car pretty much beyond repair as well. So disastrous situation. Honestly, in a way, I think it was Stroll's fault, most certainly. They did give him a penalty, but again, you do have to think how many repair bills is Latifi costing Williams right now. It's unbelievable stuff. When Stroll's in front of you and he's got to look in the mirror to see you, maybe don't risk it, because this guy doesn't seem to check behind him. Honestly, I can't even believe this happened, to be honest. But it's just vintage stuff. Anyway, Lance Stroll, 3-place grid penalty for the crash with Latifi. I believe he's also going to get 2 penalties penalty points in addition on his license, right, which could be a big deal as time progresses as well. But let's dive into qualifying then. So Q1, Vettel manages to just make it out on track after that incident. The red flag gave him enough time to get out on track. Did a decent lap, but it was only good enough for P18. Stroll didn't even make it on. Latifi didn't even make it on. And Albon and Magnussen also find themselves out. So yes, the Haas not looking so pretty this weekend, right? Kind of the Haas and almost that the McLaren have swapped places the last couple of races. That's interesting, right? We certainly expected the Haas, maybe the development of that car, not to be quite so quick as the season goes on. But I didn't expect them to drop down the pecking order this quickly. But, we'll see how the rest of the weekend progresses. Q2, Gasly's out. Bottas is out. Big story there, of course, because I believe he was in Q3 for, 103 consecutive races. And, now he's fallen out of that one. There was some talk about the rear wing he was running, given the DRS, the back straight, right, that was now changed to not be a DRS zone. He reckoned that was kind of affecting, at least what their preparation was going into the race. Affected his qualifying as well. And then we get to the final set. He has 103 consecutive Q3 appearances. Comes to an end for Bottas. So unfortunate stuff. But, I guess it's time to start again. I'm pretty sure that's what he said, right? It has to end at some point if we want to start another run just like that. Now, not all the drivers were complaining because the sun was coming down. At this point, there'd been quite a few red flags. So they're in a position where, in certain situations, the drivers basically could not see, especially in the third sector. Really tough to judge the braking zones. And, Leclerc was, I'm pretty sure it was Leclerc who said, yeah, just get me the darkest possible visor you have so I can try and see through the sun. Now, this could well have been the story of the day. Maybe it still is the story of the day, to be honest, of Fernando Alonso. He was absolutely flying, right? You can argue about, whether the back DRS straight and he was pushing for that to be out and maybe help the setup of their car. But regardless of the situation, he had a great Sector 1. He was purple in Sector 2 by 2/10 up on the eventual pole lap of Leclerc. And then Sector 3, going just into Sector 3, to be honest, he was about a minute into his lap or so not far from reaching the, the checkered flag. And the hydraulics fail. He basically tries to change down from fourth gear, he gets into fourth gear, and then the car just stops changing down. He can't turn in. He loses power steering. And, again, another issue for Fernando, right, with his car for the Alpine crew. So really tough. It would have been great to see if this lap was completed where he would have been. I'm not sure it would have been enough for P1 just because Leclerc and the Ferrari in the final sector is so good. But Alonso could have been front row. He could have been, P3. Could have been really shaking things up at the top. So really unfortunate this happened. The car kind of fails on him again, which, sometimes you just get unlucky, to be honest, with, the Alpine's reliability the last few races. But certainly showing he's still got what it takes because the first part of this lap was absolutely fantastic. You can see here the eventual pole lap of Leclerc. He had, a 17.9 in the middle sector. Alonso had a 17.7. Of course, didn't complete Sector 3 where the Ferrari is so good. But, still, Alonso could have been right up there with this lap. He was purple. He was 2/10 up pretty much on the field, the eventual pole lap going into Sector 3. So that could have been epic. We'll see how he fares in the race. But that would have been awesome to see. But yes, it's Charles Leclerc taking pole once again. The Ferrari looked great. Of course, Verstappen was having issues with his Red Bull, the balance, these type of problems. He actually did take provisional pole before Leclerc then came through with a storming Sector 3 to take it away. 3/10 up actually. So pretty impressive stuff I thought from the Ferrari. The interesting thing really to me is the fact that it was porpoising massively down the straights, and yet they seem to be able to deal with it. Now, whether they can deal with it in a race for however many laps, that's a question mark. Whether it's slightly less powerful with more fuel on board, also another question mark. But Carlos Sainz, of course, the other massive story is that he was all the way down in P9. I think his first lap might have been decent or good enough, maybe top 5, top 4. But due to the red flag from Alonso's crash, that lap got invalidated. Therefore, he had to go again with pretty much a one-off attempt. I think they had some issue getting the car started in the garage as well. So he pretty much had one lap to make it work. And as you can see right here, comes around towards turn 9, loses the car completely out of shape. And this lap ends up falling away from him, right? So yes, Sainz P9 only after a difficult couple of laps. Reed's obviously gutted. It does mean a lot of potential tomorrow for exactly for what Red Bull are going to be able to do in the race, right? Because if Sainz is up there, then the strategic options for Red Bull are somewhat diminished. Whereas now they can leave a driver out on a long stint or whatever. They don't have to worry about Sainz being up there unless he can get up the field very quickly indeed. Who knows, of course, what happens off the start. But traditionally, rather difficult to overtake at this track. And of course, it might take some time before DRS is enabled. Now, of course, these are the final 10 standings. Outside of the Ferraris and the Red Bull, so Verstappen P2, Sergio Perez P3, just behind Verstappen. It's been impressive, honestly, how close Perez has been, I think, to his teammates so far this season in the qualifying. Then Lando Norris P4, 1:18.7 honestly at the end. I'm still away behind the pace of the top 3 cars. And also Carlos Sainz here, of course, with a kind of unexpected mistake on that final lap where he probably would have been in the top 4, to be honest, just given the pace of those cars compared to the rest of the field. But Lando, all of a sudden, after a tragic Bahrain, and also Saudi Arabia wasn't particularly good as well, Riccardo with those reliability issues, he's up there in P4. Both Mercedes follow him. They honestly looked better today, still a second off the pace. But I thought the Mercedes, they seem to get the setup a little bit better. I think Hamilton was pretty optimistic, actually, about where they'd taken their car. They seem to feel like they've maximized maximized what they have with the package right now. But I think he described the car as a bit spiteful, right? Like if you push it a little bit too hard, like she'll bite back and spin out and do stuff you don't want her to do. And George Russell right behind a 10th of Hamilton, and then Daniel Ricciardo, right? So phenomenal weekend so far for the McLarens. Awesome to see Ricciardo up here as well into Q3 with them, in front of the home crowd. Ocon, Alonso would have been way up here, I imagine, and then Sainz P9. So very interesting qualifying session. Got to talk Verstappen real quick though, because well, he discussed his car and he was not particularly happy about the balance and the feel of it this weekend. Pretty sure he said all weekend he hasn't been particularly happy. Not one lap where I actually felt confident he could push the car to the limit. He complained about these issues last time as well. Not seen Perez talk too much about them, but yeah, the Red Bull looks really quick in a straight line. It's actually phenomenal how quick it is and not porpoising at all. But the car apparently still a bit all over the place. So maybe still a lot to come from the Red Bull guys, but also like it. And I think he said it would be a little bit better in the race actually than it is in qualifying. And he talks about the terrible weekends. Says the car felt better in the long run though. That's the thing. Where they did the long run testing, I believe at the end of FP2, there was it seemed like the Red Bulls had a bit more pace than the Ferraris in that particular session. So maybe in the long run race things might be somewhat different. He's not convinced though that getting rid of this DRS zone was actually a good idea. So he says, I don't really understand why that was done. Mystery to me. It's a lot safer there than in Jeddah, for example, as we were describing earlier on in the video. So yeah, interesting stuff I suppose. Maybe it hurts Red Bull, right? Maybe that's why Max is somewhat frustrated, because that could have been a good opportunity right on that straight to, well, it's not of course not a straight, but you know what I mean, to get past Leclerc with the quadruple DRS zones we have. Might be somewhat more difficult this time, might be more strategic options that have to come into play. This is another thing that's been changed. The rule set has been changed again, like Max makes another rule get made for him. But as is described, in order to avoid the likelihood of accidents before the safety car returns to the pits, from the point at which the lights on the car are turned out, drivers must proceed at a pace which involves no erratic acceleration or braking, nor any maneuver which is likely to endanger other drivers or impede the restart. So Verstappen's tactic of pulling right alongside the car in front and kind of toying with them or something like that, which has been using for quite some time now, that's effectively been removed from the rule set. So he's no longer allowed to do that. Of course, at the last couple of times he's tried this against Leclerc, I think Leclerc's been a bit too clever for him, but it certainly worked for him a little bit in the past. But now, yes, he will have to be pretty much a car length behind. This is okay, but neither of these kind of crawling options are actually available anymore, because they will impede the restart as is described, or potentially endanger other drivers. So well, that's now been removed. Won't see that from Verstappen anymore. If he does it, I guess penalties might come through. Speaking of potential penalties, there was some talk about Leclerc. He got summoned to the stewards for potentially driving unnecessarily slowly on an in-lap. That eventually got dismissed, so that was okay. And also the same for Perez. He was investigated to allegedly failing to slow for a single yellow flag, but when they looked at the telemetry data, I think he did lift off and everything, so that was okay. They're kind of at the top three stand as it was. So Leclerc, Verstappen, Perez going into tomorrow with Norris right behind them. Albon also gets disqualified from qualifying. No one really cares, to be honest, but I'm pretty sure he couldn't get a litre of fuel or something. His car basically ran out of gas and had to move it back to the pits. He was at P16 anyway, so he's going to have to start from the rear of the field. That might mean something at the back, but more than likely, these cars aren't getting into the points regardless. Hamilton was generally pretty happy about where they got the Mercedes to be this weekend, so who knows what they'll do tomorrow. Of course, generally in race pace, they've been somewhat better this season than they were in qualifying. Whether it will be the other way around for the McLarens, right, who knows, but should have some great battles tomorrow between, Norris, Ricciardo, and the two Mercedes, theoretically behind, the top three, with then Sainz potentially rushing through the field as well. Who knows what he can do with that Ferrari tomorrow. So it's a very exciting race, and also Red Bull and Helmut Marko believe that tomorrow they think they're well positioned. So yes, they might be behind Leclerc on terms of raw pace and also based on the track position, I guess, at the start of the race, but in Friday's long runs, Verstappen was a bit quicker than Leclerc and Perez slightly quicker than Sainz. So probably should make for a great race, and Helmut Marko doesn't reckon that they can, the Ferrari guys can possibly handle an entire race with all that bouncing. It's going to be tough. The Red Bull, of course, doesn't really do that. And, just this in Formula 1 as well. The last time a Ferrari driver was on pole in Australia was back in 2007 with Kimi Räikkönen. So unbelievable stuff. Creates for an incredibly entertaining affair tomorrow. And the sun was in the driver's eyes in more images than just one. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new as always. Take care of yourselves. And I will see you next time.